Hey everybody, welcome to the Catwalk. I'm your host, YWLA, missional entrepreneur and storyteller. For the last 20 years, I find myself serving from the oil field to the mission field with a lot of different stops in between. I love the entrepreneurial spirit and I love hearing stories because behind every story is a person. Would you join us each week as together behind this microphone we build relationships with our guests? Here is today's episode.
From the PCC studios in Midland, it's The Catwalk, presented by Performance Chemical. Conversations connecting with industry executives, community leaders, nonprofit organizations, and social entrepreneurs.
Welcome everyone to The Catwalk. Again, thank you so much for joining with us, and a special thank you to our title sponsor, Performance Chemical, a specialty chemical company right here in the Permian Basin. If you're looking for someone to provide chemicals in a quick and reliable service atmosphere, then choose Performance Chemical Company. Today, I am so glad to welcome our very special guest, the development manager for the Young Women's Leadership Academy of Midland. This is Kate Williamson. Hey,
Hi.
Kate.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Great. Welcome. So glad you're here. So tell us, before we get to know about you, what is the Young Women's, it's a long phrase, the Young Women's Leadership Academy of Midland. What is it?
It is. We'll call it YWLA for short, so you don't
Perfect.
have to keep saying that over and over.
Perfect.
But YWLA is an all-female MISD school of choice, which means all of our students are MISD students, all of our teachers are MISD teachers. We are a public school. There is no cost to attend our school, and we go from 6th to 12th grade and specialize in college preparatory academics. So very high caliber academics for girls and their families who want a shot at a really good education.
How many students currently are enrolled?
Right now, we have around 360 students, and we're in grades 6 through 11. We will add a grade 12 last year, so our 11th graders will become our 12th graders, and then we'll be a 6 through 12 fully built-out campus with the hopes of having upwards of 600 or 700 students one day.
What's the best part of Young? I don't even know the abbreviation.
YWLA.
YWLA. What is the best part of that school?
The best part of YWLA, I would say, is the individual attention and the small class sizes that our students get. A lot of our girls are very high academic achievers and might be lost on one of the comprehensive campuses that have thousands of students. And so I think the small class sizes and the very individual attention that our teachers give to each girl to meet them where they are and bring them to where they need to be.
Is this school, is it like a standalone, or is there a model that it's compared to?
Mm-hmm. So we're part of the Young Women's Preparatory Network, which is a network of 10 all-girls public schools across the state of Texas.
Okay.
It was started 20 years ago in Dallas when a gentleman who owned Palm Harbor Homes, I'm not sure if you've ever heard of Palm Harbor Homes, but Mr. Posey was very successful in Palm Harbor Homes, but he came from a very humble background. His mom didn't have more than a third grade education. It always pulled at his heartstrings to know that his mom wasn't well educated, and so when he made his money, he made sure that girls who needed it most would not go without an education. So with a little bit of seed money, he helped found 10 all-girls public schools across the state of Texas, and we're lucky enough to have one in Midland, Texas.
Wow. Where does the funding come from?
So the initial funding for the schools came from seed money from his foundation.
Okay.
But since we are an MISD public school, the majority of our funding comes from the state of Texas, just like any other school would be funded.
Okay. So your teachers, they get vetted through the same process that a seventh grader at a regular
Correct.
school?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
And how do you recruit students? Is there a way that you go out and have open nights or family nights or student night? How do you recruit students?
Yeah, so the first group of students we really sort of just recruited to come to a school that no one had ever heard of before. So that was a little difficult. But as the years have gone on, we actually take our students into MISD schools and let them tell their story and let them tell the other girls, sitting at the various elementary schools across town, why YWLA is a good choice for them. And so our students really sell the school because they love it so much. They're so passionate about it. And then we use Facebook, and obviously our parents are word of mouth, but we're still out there looking for more students because we're not full yet. We will be one day, like most things in Midland. Once
Right.
people figure it out, there's going to be a waiting list. But right now, we're really looking for girls and their families who care about education.
Wow. So if a young family's moving into town and they're looking for alternative ways of putting their student into school, what would be the selling point for YWLA?
Right now, I think the selling point would be our very small class sizes and our very individual attention, and our high academics. We're an A-rated campus with TEA. We don't have the ratings for this next year, but we anticipate that we'll be the same again this year. And just the laser focus on the data that makes students succeed. So across the network, there's a 100% high school graduation rate, and the college persistence rates across the network are much quicker than the national average. We don't have graduates yet, but we know that once we do have graduates, that 100% of our girls will go to college.
And that day's coming where you're going to have those graduates.
2025 is our first graduating class.
So tell me, we got connected. Somebody had in town had called us at Performance Chemical, contacted me and said they're looking for some items for their science lab. So we were able to get a few things, some test tubes, some litmus paper, just some little stuff, and provide for you guys. And I know that probably a development manager, that's your role, is to find that. What all do you do at the school? What's your role?
Right. So what I do is I try and fund or find, like I did with you, things that wouldn't normally be covered with the per student funding, so extra things. So we have all AP classes. The course that you helped us find chemicals for is at on-ramps with UT Austin. So very, very high caliber stuff that you're not going to find in a normal high school. And so I fundraise for those items. Some other examples of things that our students get to experience that they might not experience at another school is starting in 6th grade, our girls take the PSAT every single year to get acquainted with it, to get acquainted with the test, to get comfortable with it, to know what's going to be on it. Another thing that's unique to our campus is that starting in 6th grade, each girl will take a college tour every single year. So our 6th graders will go to Texas Tech. Our 7th graders might go to UTPB. Next week, our juniors are going on a South Texas swing. Several local Midlanders have helped me set up college tours. We have a great college counselor. So that's just something extra that we offer to our girls. Some of them never left Midland before. But because of YWLA, they're going out of town every year to a different college campus to see what might be their best fit.
Now, as far as academics, are they able to partake in most of the same classes that happen at an MISD campus?
Absolutely. The only difference is our high school curriculum is all advanced placement. So if you're going to take a math class, an English class, a history class, you're going to be taking an AP class, which for our girls is particularly important because if you can do well enough on an AP test, that will get you college credit, and therefore your family will have to pay less for you to go to college.
Okay. Is there a cap to how many students you guys will accept?
The goal is to have, just to keep the class sizes small, the goal is to have no more than 100 students per grade. A couple of our grades are at that capacity, but then there's room in the other grades.
Wow. Okay, so I want to get to how you got to the school. So let's back up. Tell us a little bit. This is kind of your elevator pitch.
Okay.
Everything about you. Where are you from? And kind of walk us through some of that journey.
I would love to because it's a full circle.
You have a great story. I've heard most of it.
It's a full circle moment, and it really is proof that God puts you right where you need to be at the right time.
Absolutely.
So I grew up in Vernon, Texas. So right close to the Panhandle near Oklahoma. And in high school, my parents made the decision to send me to an all-girls boarding school in Dallas. I say it was the greatest gift my parents ever gave me because it opened up a whole new world to a small-town girl and really introduced me to how I, as a young woman, could thrive in a single-gendered environment. And so I graduated from the Hockaday School in Dallas, and I went to Texas Tech and
Breckham
Tech, yes. And moved to Washington, D.C., worked on Capitol Hill for 10 years, met my husband there. Both of my children were born there, and we moved to Midland about 10 years ago for my husband's work and had the opportunity. Within the head of the school was Jennifer Seibert, and then Dr. Elise Kell with MISD met me and said, someone gave me your name because they know that you're interested in single gender education because you went to an all-girls school, and we would really like you to help us bring this school to Midland. And that was in 2018. And sort of the rest is history. I was a volunteer for a while. I was still doing political consulting, but after the election of 2020, I decided that I wanted to maybe not be in politics anymore. And so a position opened up at the Young Women's Leadership Academy to basically do for YWLA what I had been doing as a political consultant for 15 years, which is raising money.
Wow.
And I thought, wow, this is really the right time for me to jump in and help the school get off the ground. So,
wow. Okay, a couple questions through that journey, because it's a lot. You
It's
covered a lot in there.
It's a lot.
Okay, Vernon High School, what was the mascot?
The Vernon Lions.
The Vernon Lions.
But my high school mascot in Dallas was the Hockaday Killer Daisies. Talk about intimidation.
Can you have a killer daisy?
We did.
What is a killer daisy?
It's a very fierce daisy that thrives in the harshest of environments.
The harshest of environment. In Dallas, it's got to be
Dallas, Texas.
harsh. Okay, so Vernon, and then you went to Tech, and did you meet your husband at Tech?
I didn't. My husband is a Red Raider,
He's a Red
he
Raider,
was
but-
already in D.C.
Okay.
So I met him in D.C. through the Texas Tech alumni chapter.
Okay, so what was Hockaday like for you that prepared you to go to the next step, like for Tech?
I think for me, it was learning how to study and having teachers who really had very, very high expectations of me.
So you studied in college?
I studied in high school.
That's a weird word.
No, I didn't. I mean, listen, I didn't study in college because I learned how to study in high school.
Yeah.
So I learned how to do what I needed to do to get good grades in college.
Right.
So my studying, I had my sort of freshman year of high school because I was learning to live on my own in a dorm, doing my own laundry. And so by the time I got to Tech, I was like, oh,
I can do this.
I can do this.
Yeah.
Totally.
Did you live on campus?
I did. Hockaday had a boarding department where there were girls from all over the country and all over the world.
Okay, so when you went to Tech, did you have a roommate that didn't know how to do some of the things that you'd been doing for 4 or 5 years?
I did. I went with a friend from Hockaday who was a day student. So she was prepared academically, but I was definitely more prepared sort of functionally to take care of myself.
Right. Okay. So from Tech, you graduated with what degree?
I graduated with a Spanish and political science degree.
Spanish and political science. And I'm assuming you're using both of those
I actually am. I mean, the political science, is more about strategy and leadership and sort of knowing how to read a room. In Spanish, I actually use it a lot. A lot of our students at YWLA are English language learners. And so when they come to do the interview to enter the school, I conducted a lot of interviews in Spanish, which I love. I love.
Awesome. All right. So you're in D.C. How did that journey happen? Was it something you always wanted to do? Was work in D.C.? Did you ever work in Austin and then work your way up? Or how does that work?
I don't know. I guess I wanted to go to law school. And
at Tech?
I applied several places, but it was it was right after 9/11, and a lot of people were applying to go back to grad school because a lot of people lost their jobs. The economy was not great, so I didn't get into I didn't apply to Tech. I applied on the East Coast because my now husband was on the East Coast, so I really got to DC
you were
because of a
chasing
boy.
him,
I
kind
was.
of? Yeah.
I was.
Okay.
But it turned out okay for me.
So you were in Austin for some?
I did Austin. I did an internship in Austin for a summer, and then worked on Capitol Hill for U.S. Senator Kay Bailey Hutchison, worked in her press office, and worked for Congressman Mac Thornberry, who was from Amarillo, for 15 years until he retired, and he was my sort of my last political foray. And when he retired, I said, I'm done. I had a good run, but it's time to not do this anymore.
Okay, a couple things about D.C. What did you ever get lost in DuPont Circle?
I mean, I had to go around it several times.
Several times, yeah. I think the movie The American President with Michael Douglas.
Yes.
That's in there a lot, and I've been to D.C. a couple times, and I've always tried to avoid that just because of that.
The traffic is crazy. Although compared to Midland, I feel like maybe D.C. traffic might be a little bit better.
Where did you live?
So we lived on Capitol Hill. We lived in the shadow of the Capitol. Yeah, we lived 10 blocks away from Capitol Hill for our first house, and our second house was about 12 blocks away. We could walk to work, and it was a lovely season of our life.
Now you met your husband.
Did. In D.C.
In D.C. Did you guys come back here to get married?
We got married in Vernon, Texas.
In Vernon.
First Methodist Church.
Yeah.
And
okay. And then you went back to D.C.
And then we went back to D.C.
What did he do?
He worked on the Hill as well.
Okay.
He did energy policy for a couple of senators from New Mexico, and then for a trade association.
And right now he's with
Diamondback.
He's with Diamondback. Okay. So you're in D.C. You went around DuPont Circle a couple of times. Favorite restaurant there?
Oh, gosh. Doc Granville Moore's, which is sort of a brew pub on H Street.
Yeah.
Was right around the corner from our old house. They have excellent mussels and beer.
Okay. What was your favorite place to go outside of D.C.? Did you guys go into Arlington a lot? Did you, Georgetown?
You know, we really, really liked going sort of to the Eastern Shore, right. There was the Bay Bridge that went over to Dover. There's a little beach there, kind of a mini beach. But gosh, the Shenandoah Valley is beautiful as well.
Okay, I haven't seen that.
The fall foliage there, like this time of year, is just absolutely incredible. So many fun day trips around DC for sure.
My favorite thing about DC was, we've been a couple times, but I love the cherry blossom trees.
Yeah.
I guess you experienced that.
During
April.
April.
What was maybe a worse experience, or something that you're like, I'm glad I'm not there?
Yeah.
Was it maybe protests or?
Well, I think living in D.C., my husband was on Capitol Hill on 9/11. I was back at Tech, but he was in the Capitol building.
He was in the Capitol on 9/11.
Yeah, he was.
Okay.
And every year around 9/11, I get chills because I'm like, man, not for those folks on that plane that went down in Pennsylvania, my life would be very, very different right now.
Sure.
And so I think working on Capitol Hill post 9/11, the security was very, very tight. There were often scares, right? Like someone would breach the airspace and we'd have to evacuate the Capitol and be running down the street. And so that I don't miss, sort of the fear part of it. But man, it was a beautiful place to work. In 15 years ago, it just was kind of a different place than it is now.
Sure. You're married, kids?
I do. I have a son who is a junior at Midland High, OYB. That's what they say at Midland High, on you Bulldogs.
Yeah.
And then a daughter who is in 8th grade at YWLA. So we get to go to school together every day.
Does she like that?
She does.
She does like that mom's hanging around. And
she does. Right now. That may change,
that
right?
may change.
You have teenage daughters, right? They're a little older.
I have one still.
Okay.
I have one that's 18.
Okay.
And there's times when she's like, I need you to stay over there on that side of the street or house or building or state or whatever it is. So, okay. So this is kind of the week of Halloween. And so I thought, for Halloween, you've got to have caramel apples.
Yeah.
And you've got to have, are you a big candy corn fan?
I'm like not a candy corn fan, but I've heard if you eat it with peanuts, it makes it taste better.
Yes, so they're here if you want them
Okay.
at any time. Have those, because Chris will probably just jump over the table and
Okay.
grab some of
He
this
looks like
at
he's
some
ready to do
point.
that.
He probably will. So, do you guys do Halloween?
We do.
Do you dress up as
We
a family
do,
when they were
and-
younger? Or?
I mean, we did on Capitol Hill. Capitol Hill had Halloween much like L Street in Midland, which is just fantastic. Everyone goes out and decorates their front yards, and I'm kind of actually sad that my kids are a little bit bigger because I loved doing Halloween in Midland when we first moved here.
So you give out the candy.
Out
and
the
you do everything.
candy.
Do you spook everybody when they come to the door?
We're not into spooking. We're more like fun. Like I think we're going to do like sort of a carnival theme and do a cotton candy machine this year.
Oh, I'm coming to your house.
You should.
Okay. Off air, you can tell me where you live.
I will.
So when you were younger in Vernon, did you guys dress up?
Totally did.
What was your favorite
Well,
costume?
I mean, I'm a child of the 80s. So
Okay.
does anyone remember the plastic Cookie Monster, and it was like a
Yes.
plastic mask and like a sheet?
Yes.
Like
the mask had a string around
would
it
break.
with 2 staples.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you had a big giant head, it snapped.
It would snap.
But
I don't know when we went from that to actual costumes now. I haven't seen those probably in 30 years. But
when I was younger, there was never a Spirit Halloween store.
Correct.
That popped up whenever
Correct.
somebody left and went under, like a Toys R Us left and it popped up. But I remember my mom made some of my costumes.
Yeah.
And they were, I was like the little homeless kid that wore the costume.
Right.
But I loved Halloween. It was one of my favorite things. And then as a parent, with younger kids. We used to do. We lived in Odessa for a while. We live in Midland now, and we loved it. We let our kids walk everywhere,
Oh,
and
it's the best.
it's so much fun.
It's a lot of fun.
It's so much fun.
It brings out the community.
So a couple of fun questions that I would love to know. Are you a Swiftie?
I kind of am, but my daughter is not a Swiftie, and
She's
so
not?
I had a lot of FOMO last year when I saw all my friends going to the Taylor Swift concert with their daughters, and my daughter is very much into like 80s hair bands.
Really?
Like she
like Poison and
Guns N' Roses.
Rat.
She saw Aerosmith for her 13th birthday last year.
Oh my gosh, I love her.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
she dances to her own drum for sure, but
Bon Jovi.
Bon Jovi.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, yes, it's.
But is Swift on your playlist? Is
Oh,
Taylor
for
Swift?
sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Is that your guilty pleasure? Just to roll the windows down and blast Taylor
right,
Swift?
because when I do it when she's in the car, she's like, "Mom, stop! This is so embarrassing." Yeah.
Who would play a movie about you?
Oh gosh, Sandra Bullock.
I was going to say
Really?
that. It's the
Okay.
black hair.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sandra Bullock. Who would play a movie about me?
Oh gosh.
Yeah. Check out this. Look at this. Who would play that?
David Spade.
Not a comment over there. Not a comment
he's
over
hilarious.
there. I love that. That's funny. Somebody said once John Candy, and I'm
Okay.
like, I don't know if to be grateful for that or to laugh at them. 'Cause
Yeah, I don't see John
I'm
Candy.
not Canadian either.
Yeah.
Or Chris Farley, maybe that, but that's a good
David
one.
Spade.
I've had some people say that, who's the guy that played Goose in Top Gun?
Oh.
Anthony Edwards, when he was at ER. That I
Oh.
kind of look like
Yeah?
him a little
Okay, I
bit,
can
or
see
some
that.
country western singer, but I hate country music.
Well.
All right, let's talk about your leadership style. So
Okay.
you are the development manager there. You've worked in D.C., you've been on the Hill, you've probably seen some crazy stuff. You've seen, and this is not a show to talk about government
Right.
and political and stuff,
Right.
and you've made, that, hey, you got out when you got out. What's your leadership style, and who do you kind of model after?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's changed at different seasons in my life, but right now I'm really loving Adam Grant. I follow him
Okay.
on all the social media channels. But my leadership style, I think, is all about making sure that the people who need to be at the table are at the table.
Okay.
And I'll give an example that's specific to YWLA.
Yeah.
In the decisions that are made there. And a few years ago, we were given the campus that we're in now, which is the Booker T. Washington campuses. It was
Okay,
the
yeah,
Washington STEM school. It was a school in Midland that was an elementary school before segregation. And so when we got that school, I knew there was large importance of the historical things that have happened in that school,
Sure.
the history of Midland. And so when we started talking about an advisory council for our school, I wanted the neighborhood to be represented, that they needed to have a seat
That's
at that
great.
table, someone who had been to that school as a child. And so across the street, there's the Southeast Senior Center, and Miss Iris Henderson Hall is the executive director. And so I immediately called her and said, Iris, I need you at this table. Because there's things she knows that I'm not going to know. There's historical events that happen in Midland that we need to be a part of that I'm not going to know about. And so I would say making the right people are at the table and sitting at a table and saying, who's missing from this table right now?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a leadership style, but that's sort of how I go about.
No, that's great. And that really opens up the next question that I wanted to find out from you and your family is, where are you guys serving in the community? Are you volunteering anywhere? Maybe the school, or maybe just personally?
Right. Yeah. So over the years, I've been involved at High Skies Children Ranch. I was the board chair there,
Yeah.
and served as the Crystal Ball chair, it's a great nonprofit. My husband's actually on the board there now. My husband serves at Senior Life right now, and so he takes my son to drive Meals on Wheels, which is very, very important. And really, we're pouring into our kids' schools because we know that we are parents who are able to be involved, and there's a lot of parents who aren't able to be involved.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
it takes us all. And so we're really involved with my son's what's going on in his life. And I'm the volunteer coordinator for the Midland High Football Booster Club because a component of that football team is service, which I
Right.
love. What they are doing off the field is just as important as what's happening on the field. And the same thing at YWLA, our girls are serving everywhere. I mean, they're about to get a big award in November for being the best youth volunteers in Midland.
That's awesome.
So we're trying to pour
That's
into
great.
other kids because we always say that leaders serve, for sure.
Leaders serve. I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. So tell me, you mentioned about being at the table and who sits there. Who is the most influential person maybe in your life, or maybe somebody who pours into you, and then who do you invest into?
Yeah. So this person, her name is Roz Grover. I'm sure you've heard of Roz Grover. Her name is on a street in Midland.
Yeah.
I met Roz through the Hockaday connection when I moved to town.
Okay. Yeah.
She called me up and invited me to lunch, and she really has a very pragmatic view about Midland and about Midland's growth, and about sort of preparing a new generation of leaders. And so I have lunch with her a couple times a year. In fact, I'm having lunch with her in a few weeks. And,
Awesome.
Every time I go to lunch with her, I feel like, man, I found a different perspective that maybe I was not thinking of. And as far as who I pour into, I hope that the teachers at YWLA would say that I'm pouring into them. Man, I've been in a school for a year now. I never realized how hard it is to be a teacher, how much pressure they have on themselves, with their own families, from the state, from parents. And so I hope what I do by giving them the tools that they need and them not having to worry about not having something for their class, that I'm pouring into them. That's what I hope.
What do you want the school to be known for? And then what do you want people to know you for? How about that? Let's do that. The school and then you.
I want the school to be known for a choice in Midland for girls who might not otherwise have a chance. That's what I want them to be known for.
That's awesome.
For me personally, I just want to be known that I had an impact.
Do you remember the first time we met?
I do.
It was at Far West Coffee.
That's right.
And it was so
loud
in there.
So loud. We were screaming at each other.
I think I heard a different name. I think I heard 4 or 5 different things. I'm like, wow, she's done that? And it's like, no, we haven't. I remember that because it was so loud and it was great. So this has been great because it's not been loud and I've been able to hear everything. I appreciate what you guys are doing at the Young Women's Leadership Academy of Midland. Is there ever going to be something like this for boys?
And I think we talked about that when we first met. And I think it's possible. When YWLA came to Midland in 2019, prior to that, MISD had done what they call a call for great schools, so an RFP, right? And several different organizations came to the table. The Young Women's Preparatory Network was one of them. There is a Young Men's Preparatory Network in the state of Texas. They do schools like ours and a lot of the locations where we have schools. For whatever reason, that organization did not come to the table at that point. I don't know why. I don't know them. I think there should be. I think it'd be great. I have a son. That's just not what we do. So I think it's possible. If someone wants to call up the Young Men's Preparatory Network and see, if they're interested in starting a school in Midland, I think they might be, but they just didn't come at that time.
And you never know what's in store.
You never know.
Midland.
You never know.
Kate, thank you so much for being here. It's been great to see you again.
Thank you.
Great to visit and hear your story. I wish we had more time to talk about D.C. because that's a fascinating place. So
it's fascinating.
Thank you again so much.
Thank you for bringing those supplies to our girl, and thank you to Performance for allowing you to do that, because we were in a we were not going to be able to do our very first lab of the season of the school year without your help. So I'm
glad
so
we
grateful.
were able to come through.
Yes,
so
thank you.
Thank you for joining with us again this week, and thanks again to our title sponsor, Performance Chemical. If you're looking for a specialty chemical company here in the Permian Basin, please reach out to Performance Chemical at perf-chem.com. What's the way that people can get a hold of the school?
So you can find us on Facebook. We're YWLA Midland, also on Instagram, on Twitter, or if you just go on the MISD website, we have a landing page there as well.
Thank you. As we always say, don't be sad it's over. Just be glad it happened. We will see you all next week. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Drop us a line at media@perf-chem.com. Thanks to our title sponsor, Performance Chemical. How you get there matters to us.